I'm your host, Richard Costello, and today I'm pleased to welcome Wingar Tsang, Director of Portfolio Operations and Asset Management at Allied Properties REIT. Wingar brings more than 15 years of commercial real estate experience, spanning asset management and portfolio operations with some of the industry's most respected organisations. Over the course of her career, she's overseen more than 4 million square feet of office, retail, industrial, and seniors housing across both the public and private sectors. Her journey has included roles with Lululemon, Anbang Insurance, the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, and now Allied Properties REIT. Today, Wingar oversees a portfolio of 16 commercial properties across Vancouver, where she plays a key role in driving operational performance, enhancing the user experience, and creating long-term value. Beyond her day-to-day role, she serves on the board of the Gastown Business Improvement Association and more recently the board of the Gastown Hastings Crossing Community Policing Centre, helping shape one of Vancouver's most historic and evolving neighbourhoods. In today's episode, we'll explore Wingar's unique career journey, her transition into leadership, Allied's evolving strategy, the future of commercial real estate, and the mentors who have helped shape her leadership philosophy. So Wingar, welcome to the Real Estate Careers Podcast.
Hey, Richard, it's a real pleasure to be here. You've had some absolute industry heavyweights on this show. So I'm truly honored to join the lineup. It's also great to reconnect with you after our panel at the ULI conference. And I have to say, I've appreciated your support over the years, and I consistently recommend you and your team because of the massive value you guys bring to the industry, whether someone is navigating their career or a company who is looking for top tier talent. So to everyone tuning in today, thank you for being here with us, and let's dive in.
Thanks. And I can promise everyone I haven't paid Wingar off for the kind words, but thank you very much. And yeah, I'm really happy that we're finally doing this. It's only been a year in the making, and yeah, I was reflecting back, Wingar, and I think it's been well over 10 years that we first connected, and I believe I helped you make the move to Anbang Insurance. Does that sound about right, in 2017?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Time flies, yeah, and I've been watching your career evolve ever since, and an impressive career it is, because you've experienced so many different environments and roles, as I mentioned in the intro. So I guess the first question is about the variety, and was that variety something you sought out intentionally, or did it evolve naturally over time?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say it was, a 10-year master plan drawn up on a whiteboard, but in all honesty, it evolved naturally. That mindset, came from, straight from my early university co-op days. I recall breaking into the market with no experience, and it was truly a masterclass in resilience. I'd be somewhat distressed, with rejected applications and a sad face at the co-op office. But my co-op advisor gave me a really game-changing perspective. And they said the real beauty of early work terms isn't about, landing your dream role right from the get-go. It's figuring out what is a fit and what isn't. So apply to a variety of roles. Get your hands on different, applications, and figuring out what you vibe with or what you don't vibe with, to use the phrase that my Gen Z colleagues absolutely cringe at when I say it, but I'm definitely dating myself there. Jokes aside, I think applying this mindset to commercial real estate, I wanted exposure across, office, retail, industrial, and even specialized asset types like senior housing. If it's a business trip, we need to go and take into a small town in interior BC, that takes us 2 flights and a 5-hour road trip, I'm there. If it's a mobile home park with an unconventional rent roll, let's underwrite that deal. If there's excess land that we can expand seniors housing units for highest best use, let's explore. I think it's that continuous curiosity that led me to want to see how value is created across the entire spectrum. And honestly, each asset type has its own rhythm and risk profile. And if you only play in one sandbox, you're almost looking at real estate with one eye closed. So yeah, just looking back at, over 15 years in the business, I see how seamlessly it all connects, and financial analysis sort of taught me the language of trade. I think asset management gave me the playbook for creating real value and running operations at a macro level. Public land strategy reveals how that policy, community, and development intersects. That journey, long story short, it wasn't pre-planned, but it evolved in the best way possible. And I'm grateful for the chance to manage and lead some truly exciting, complex, and unique deals along the way.
No, that's fantastic. And I love the way you kind of weaved that in. So just to build on the themes of working in both public and private environments, what are some of the biggest differences you've noticed, perhaps in mindset or decision making, and how those experiences have shaped how you approach your role today?
Yeah, great question. I'm grateful to have this kind of dual lens approach to business, having worked in both public and private sectors. The private sector, I feel, often asks, how fast can we execute? While the public sector may ask, what are the 20 or what are the 30-year implications? Private decision making moves with really high agility around financial ROI, and public strategy requires managing a really diverse and competing interests where process and governance are just as important as the outcome. So having worked on both sides, I bring a hybrid mindset to my leadership today, and I try to push for the agility and discipline needed to drive returns, but also with the patience and multi-stakeholder perspective required to mitigate sort of long-term downside risks.
So one topic that comes up regularly from people listening to this podcast is making that first move into leadership. And it can feel a bit chicken and egg. So you need the leadership experience to land the role, but you also need someone to give you that first opportunity. So how did that transition happen for you?
Yeah, I shared this at the panel as well, and I will share it here. So I feel rather than viewing it as a dilemma, I actually see it as a sequence. I think leadership is an earned capability, while a promotion is sort of a formal validation of that capability. To me, real leadership isn't triggered by a change in title. It's developed through daily execution and how you handle ambiguous, unowned challenges. And when you proactively resolve these bottlenecks and align cross-functional teams and consistently deliver results, you've already demonstrated readiness long before the opportunity presents itself. And so in mentoring sort of some exceptionally bright, high potential talent throughout my career, I see a common hurdle is the temptation to seek rapid advancement. While I feel ambition is critical, I think true executive maturity and emotional intelligence requires a little bit of a level of experiential seasoning, and I advocate for that patience and that deep preparation and that high impact execution. Sometimes you have to let it simmer. Or let it marinate. And if you consistently bring, thoughtful solutions to complex problems, just trust that career trajectory will take care of itself.
So you've been in a leadership role for a while. What responsibilities surprised you the most? And for someone perhaps aspiring to become a director, how can they start preparing themselves before they actually have the title?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise wasn't, the technical workload, because as you advance in different levels of an organization, you may feel, oh, the deals get more complex. Do I have the toolkits to solve complex problems along the way? I actually found that it was a shift from doing the work to managing the context and connecting the dots across the entire business. So you're seeing from a much higher level up. And as an individual contributor, you're more focused on solving the problem in front of you. But as a director, your job is setting the environment. It's removing roadblocks for your team and aligning competing priorities across different teams so then the others can execute cleanly. So for anyone, I would say, looking to make that leap, in my humble opinion or advice, is to start managing the outcomes and not the actual tasks. And don't just bring, your leader a problem, bring viable solutions with a clear recommendation on which one to take. I think the most successful team members I've worked with all have a really strong ownership mindset, and they think about how a decision impacts the balance sheet, operations, and cross-functional teams long before they even make a recommendation. So I find those traits helpful.
What would be an example, perhaps in your current role, of how you're encouraging somebody to manage an outcome and not a task? Like, what's a scenario that comes up for you?
Yeah, I mean, in the world of operations, there's always different problems you encounter every day. It could be a flood, a fire, or something goes wrong. And, instead of going into, a panic mode, or, hey, I actually need to execute 50 different tasks in the next hour to make this building safe, focus on the protocols that we already have. So you already have a plan in place, or maybe it could be an emergency response plan in place. Now you have to almost be the conductor or to lead this initiative, because you only have a pair of hands and you may not be able to do everything all at once.
Wingar, leadership means something different to everyone, I feel. So how would you describe your own leadership style, and how has it evolved since stepping into the role?
Yeah, leadership is really fluid and adaptive to me. I find exceptional leaders that I've worked with in the past, they adapt their approach to each individual team member, such as knowing when to offer the tough love and when to provide the gentle encouragement based on what motivates each person. And so business needs evolved, and my leadership style, also evolved. I find when I started at Allied back in 2022, we've had about 6 office staff and a few operators in the office. Our portfolio size was just over 500,000 square feet of GLA, but fast forward to today, by way of acquisition and strategic repositioning, we added another 1 million square feet of GLA. Now we're a team of 24 and counting. So in there's been a lot of changes, growth, and adaptation. So I find sometimes being a leader almost requires you to roll up your sleeves and be in the trenches with your team sometimes. They might need you to be by their side when resolving complex tenant matters. At times, you just need to weather the storm and keep showing up and be the anchor, ignore the noise. Sometimes it's embracing friction and not shying away from uncomfortable conversations or unconventional ideas. And then at times you actually need to step aside and give them the autonomy to do what they do best so they can achieve peak performance. But in my opinion, no matter what the circumstance is, as a leader, you're creating direction, you're creating trust and discipline.
And looking back, Wingar, what's something about leadership that you didn't fully appreciate until you became a leader yourself?
Yeah, I see leadership a little bit differently. Some people feel whoever's, the loudest, we follow them, or the most prominent person in the group, we take their lead. To me, what I now appreciate about leadership is that relentless resilience. I think, leadership requires a lot of emotional toughness, and the defining test of a leader isn't whether you fall or face failure, but really how quickly you pick yourself back up and refocus on the mission and keep moving forward. And I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing business leaders and some elite athletes, and a common trait that I find is their ability to reset. And I think that's a very key word. Not that they don't care about their mistakes or setbacks, but it's their ability to refocus really swiftly, no matter what the circumstance is. And, in our industry, a relevant topic could be, losing deals or market downturn, macro level market trends, change management, you name it. But whatever it is, they just have this kind of don't mope, have hope type mindset, and I find that quite nice. And then the other thing that I would say is that quiet confidence and quiet diplomacy. I think effective leaders prioritize listening. They are building trust and finding the best outcome. So instead of a winner-take-all mentality, I think collaboration is key. And whether that is within your own team or cross-functional, you're almost like a conductor bringing harmony to an orchestra, even though the conductor may not make a sound themselves during a performance. But I find that a modern leader's strength is measured by how effectively they enable everyone else to play in sync. And you may not be the best musician at every instrument, but you understand how every layer fits together. And so in that kind of orchestra framework, you have the different woodwinds, brass, percussions, strings, and, the quieter, high-pitched instruments towards the front. There's a method to the madness. And there's a place for every role, including the conductor, who really sets the tempo and shape the dynamic balance and guide the performance and the artistic expression. So that quiet diplomacy, quiet confidence in leadership is important, and I think some of the major breakthroughs actually happen out of the spotlight, and often the deepest preparation, mastery of facts, and pragmatic solutions happen behind the scenes. And it might not be loud or noticeable to everyone, but the impact is certainly felt, and the results will show for itself.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I don't have this question in here, but you've given references to cooking, to music. Do you play any instruments, Wingar? I feel like there's some hidden talents here.
I used to play in a band, but I'm not that talented. So I think I'm going to stick to real estate as my day job. But I most definitely enjoy watching performances and symphonies and just how everything works so well together. Be it in a team sport, you see a great play and everyone's just firing at all cylinders. I think it's a great thing to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's talk about mentorship. So were there people along the way who have helped your perspective or leadership style, and how important has mentorship been throughout your career?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. The mentorship is tremendously important. I think mentorship came to me in different forms and lessons along the way. Earlier in my career, the lessons were be a sponge. One of the most powerful, underrated superpowers you can cultivate if you're just starting out. You rarely have the deepest domain expertise or the longest track record. But if you have the aptitude to learn, that intellectual curiosity and agility to absorb new concepts, ask and admit when you don't know something, I think that goes a long way. And then, further along in my I guess teenage years, I've learned to take criticism seriously, but not personally. I learned this concept actually through air cadets in my teenage years. As a cadet, you would constantly be under scrutiny, whether it's, your posture, your punctuality, tidiness of your uniform, you name it. And And this came in handy later when I took on a managerial level position where, you can be in high stakes environments and inevitably you'll face some sharp critique from time to time. And I think the lesson there was to, evaluate that criticism objectively. If there is truth or constructive value in it, take it, learn it, adjust. But if it stems from hostility or personal bias or bad faith, disregard it, and rather than internalizing that emotional noise. And then lastly, just through a book that my mentor, who also was interviewed on this podcast earlier episodes, Claudia, she was a manager of mine in 2 different roles in 2 different organizations, recommended this book to me called The Ride of a Lifetime, and basically is by the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. And she mentioned to me that treating people with respect, empathy, and fairness isn't just the right thing to do morally, but it's also the single best way to build a high-performing, resilient organization.
Fantastic. Well, moving on, I want to talk about Allied and market trends. So Allied's portfolio today, what would you see as the biggest opportunities that you're excited about, and where do you feel the momentum is right now? And perhaps you can maybe kick that off by, I mentioned there's kind of 16 properties, but just giving us a bit of an overview of what that looks like.
Yeah, of course. So, as shared in our most recent earnings call last week, the biggest opportunity right now is in our portfolio refinement and transition. We've largely moved past our most capital intensive development phases. So this allows us to focus entirely on operational execution and balance sheet strength. Our strategic, capital recycling and the disposition program of non-core assets, we're concentrating our portfolio around our highest quality sort of blend of heritage and modern workspaces. And the opportunity isn't just about owning great space, but it's about driving, organic growth through our record 1.7 million square feet of leasing pipeline, as flight to quality remains the dominant theme in urban real estate.
And in Vancouver, what does the portfolio look like for anyone perhaps not from the city?
Yeah, of course. So we have a mix of modern, heritage, and flex portfolio, primarily office space, but also with some retail.
So Wingar, Allied has always been known for creating places where people want to spend time, not just places to work. And how has that philosophy evolved, perhaps as tenant expectations have changed? And how does it influence the decisions you and your team make every day?
Yeah, I mean, the philosophy hasn't changed. It's actually become, a baseline requirement for the modern office. What's evolved is that, tenants no longer only want a beautiful physical building, they also want flexibility, they want activation, they want frictionless operations, and that's what we aim to provide. And tenants are also looking for workspaces that compel their teams to collaborate in person. And that influences our daily decisions, right? Like space planning and flex space. We ensure that our heritage and modern assets offer high character, strong natural light, and adaptable floor plates that foster that community and collaboration. And we also focus on operational ease, and we've intentionally made it easier and faster for mid-sized tenants to transact with us, and removing any frictions or roadblocks from leasing and through a great revamped onboarding process.
If someone was spending a day at one of Allied's buildings, where would you send them for a coffee, for lunch, and an after-work drink?
I have to be careful of how I answer because we have a really, really good spectrum of offerings. I would say coffee, Cafe Jovenet at 410 West Georgia, and that is actually the correct way to pronounce it. It's not Giovanni. I actually learned that from the owner. It's Giovanni. Beautiful solarium with natural light, top-notch coffee. Can't go wrong. Bring your clients there. And for lunch, I'd say that's tricky because we have plenty of options, but most recently I was at the Greek by Anatoly, and every dish was absolutely delicious, chef's kiss. And then for an after-work drink, I think banter room for the Yaletown crowd, and maybe hit up Soho for some pool and maybe a friendly foosball and darts game, depending on how your night goes.
Okay, all right, some good options. Okay, well, moving on to kind of community, and this is a bit of extracurricular stuff that you're involved in. So you serve on the board of the Gastown BIA, as well as the Gastown Hastings Crossing Community Policing Centre. So tell me what drew you to those roles, and how does it complement your professional career?
Yeah, I like to say I joined the Gastown BIA board out of a mix of, civic duty, but also some element of self-preservation as well, because when your day job involves managing commercial real estate in one of, Vancouver's most historic and iconic neighborhoods, you realize how, what happens outside your front door matters just as much as what happens inside a building, and in a lease agreement. I think Gastown is very unique. It's where 19th century brick and mortar charm meets 21st century urban dynamics. And what drew me to the BIA was the opportunity to help shape the neighborhood's broader ecosystem rather than just watching it from an office window. I think it's one thing to focus on tenant build-outs and lease negotiations and building operations. It's another to actively collaborate with local shop owners, restaurateurs, and city planners on the bigger picture, whether that's, driving foot traffic or championing the public realm improvements, navigating district-wide challenges together. You're creating and you're being part of that community you work in. And so I think, it complements my professional career in a very remarkably practical way. You get front row district insight sitting on the board. It gives you a pulse on market trends, consumer sentiment, and stakeholder alignment. Real estate strategy, I find, often lives at the intersection of business, community, and city policy. And what the BIA does is that work kind of sharpens these skills I use every day and bring that diverse stakeholders together and finding common ground and executing projects that create long-term value. So in short, my career is about building strong foundations within four walls, while my work with the BIA is about ensuring that the streets outside those walls stay energized, resilient, and welcoming. One of the other things I wanted to add was the kind of community first philosophy. I think my time at Lululemon really solidified my community first philosophy. Their model really proved that long-term success requires staying deeply connected to the core community you serve. And what I found super interesting while I was working there was each store identifies the real trusted micro influencers, and the local studio owner, the run club leader, or the spin instructor. They build this kind of genuine zero transaction relationship with them, and you don't apply online to become an ambassador. The local team actually nominates you because you're already a pillar of that specific neighborhood's scene. And so I feel, that kind of requires you to step in a different mindset and step away from traditional marketing and instead lean into some, authentic relationships and collaborative co-creation. And something that I learned while I was at Lululemon was using the stores and retail spaces as third spaces, and which gives local instructors the platform to not only teach classes in the store, but also, transform it into a community wellness hub. And it's a leveler, it's inclusive. The social and economic statuses in there don't matter. A CEO and a college student can sit at the same counter or join the same run club. And so that co-creation, emphasizes working with the audience rather than just selling something to them.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's interesting to think about, starting your career or one of your earlier experiences at Lululemon and how you're still perhaps linking that into the work you're doing today. But they were kind of pioneers in that space. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Gastown has faced its share of challenges over the years, and kind of the irony of hearing some sirens as you're talking there. But there's a growing sense of optimism, I think, about where it's headed. I mean, depending who you ask. But what is the current energy like, and what initiatives are you most excited to be involved with?
Yeah, I think right now the energy in Gastown is really dynamic. It's resilient, and it's undeniably moving forward. I like to tell people that managing real estate in this neighborhood is a bit like maintaining our famous cobblestones. It requires a lot of patience, continuous investment, and a genuine appreciation for historic charm. We've certainly weathered our fair share of headwinds, but the shift over the past year or two has been tangible. If you kind of walk up and down the street, you can feel that the street level vibe is quite electric. There's locals, coming back to the unmatched patio scene in the summer. Independent retailers are finding creative ways to reinvent the brick and mortar spaces. And there's a shared sense of determination across business owners, residents, and property owners to craft a vibrant, future for Gastown. And I know a thing about a thing or two about cycling. The Gastown Grand Prix, organized by the Global Relay, drew over 30,000 spectators across 13 nationalities. And this is a historic event happening since the 1970s. It's a top-level bike race in Canada. So it does have its charm and draws a lot of, different crowds and tourists and things like that. So, from where I sit, I think, public realm enhancements are key. Thinking about pedestrians first, thinking about driving that foot traffic, activating the heritage and vacant spaces. I know through the BIA, we're actively working on a lot of strategic pop-up programs, public art installations, and creative placemaking. So we're actively bridging the gap between local entrepreneurs and flexible commercial spaces to ensure that our historical buildings stay full of life.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think, big kudos to you and to the others that volunteer, give their time to contribute, because it's a really special part of the city. And obviously Allied has a vested interest in the neighborhood, but yeah, obviously it's something that everybody benefits from when it's when it is activated and clean and safe and all of those things. So thank you. Well, we'll kind of close on a few questions here, getting to know a bit more about you, and you've shared a few things perhaps I didn't know, the Air Cadets, and you were in a band. You've got many talents. Commercial real estate, it can be demanding, and you're incredibly busy, growing team and all of your volunteer things. So what helps you switch off and recharge outside of work?
Yeah, I mean, real estate or commercial real estate never sleeps. And honestly, neither do I. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm human, not a spreadsheet, but, in all honesty, to hit reset, you'll usually find me on a court or chasing the sun on my bike. I've been doing a solid number of bike rides this year, so that gives me energy. So give me a bike or any racket sport and good weather. That's my ultimate hard reset. And just, commuting to and from work, sometimes you feel like, oh, should I be doing more? Or, how can I look at this more objectively? And as you're thinking about, work and life and things like that, I turn to, some of my top podcasts, Diary of a CEO. I listen to Modern Wisdom by Chris Williamson and Cody Sanchez. All of those. But last but not least, the Real Estate Careers podcast, hosted by yourself and Highview Partners. And I will say 3 out of 4 of these are English podcasters. So you guys must be doing something right in the UK.
I don't know about that. That's too funny.
Shout out to your hometown.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I knew that you were into badminton. We'd kind of connected on that over the years, and I know that you've got a competitive side on the court too. So does that show up? How does that show up in other parts of your life?
Yeah, no, guilty as charged, Richard. I do almost love every sport, except for bowling, because I'm just terrible at it. But yes, a little friendly competition makes everything better. Now, I won't dare challenge you to the Grand Fondo or the grouse grind. I know my limits. But I'll gladly take you on in pickleball. And there's fewer variables and equal footing. So I might actually stand a chance.
Okay. All right. Challenge accepted. You're getting another invite to the Highview Pickleball Invitational in the fall. So I know you enjoy traveling as well. We'll wrap up here. What's your favorite destination so far? And is there somewhere that's still at the top of your bucket list?
Yeah. I think this was probably 2 years ago. I was in Spain and I visited Granada. Absolute treasure and so different from any place in the world I've been in. You almost, the proximity to Morocco makes you feel like you're in a different planet altogether. And it's it was a pleasure to see something so different there. But I feel like bucket list, I almost feel like obligated to say Japan, just because I've actually never been, and everyone gives me this look of, surprise. And I'm actually quite fascinated by this place called Naoshima, and in Japan, it was once a really sleepy kind of declining industrial island, and I think over 2 decades there were these visionary architects and art patrons just completely transformed it into a sanctuary where modern architecture integrates really seamlessly with nature and the local fishing villages. So in a way, they really revitalized an entire regional economy through architecture, design, and art without destroying its original identity. So I think it's a brilliant case study in strategic transformation. So I'd love to see it one day.
Wow. Now you've got me wanting to search that out. It's kind of like a Allied story as well there, revitalizing those neighborhoods. That's really cool. Well, Wingar, that's all I've got for you. Thank you. You were so prepared, as I knew you would be. Some really insightful answers. And I think, have you done a podcast before, or is this the first?
This is the first.
Okay.
I have not done a podcast before. So thank you for the opportunity. It was really fun, and thank you for having me on this lovely podcast amongst great industry leaders here. So thank you.
You're an industry leader too, Wingar, and I think if this is your first, it's definitely going to be the first of many over your amazing career. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Careers podcast, brought to you by Highview Partners, a talent search and recruitment firm focused exclusively on Canadian real estate. If your real estate team is looking to find the best next hire, or if you're ready to make the best next move in your career, then reach out to Highview Partners today. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit us at highviewpartners.ca.